So here are my thoughts in the week. 14 NFL games part 2. So it cut out at the Colts Children's School. And I don't remember what I did know. Honestly, but so I'm just gonna move on to the Minnesota Washington Commanders game. This was a shutout win for the Minnesota Vikings. They win 31-0. J.J. McCarthy, it was more like kind of like it's more simplified type of offense that J.J. McCarthy what he's more comfortable with on the offensive game plan. Let him play his style of football. Maybe more of a simplified offense or more of an offense that's he's more he's more familiar with in college and stuff like that. Maybe like let him play the style that he's used to learning. He used to play in college. And it worked for him. And he was playing for the Michigan Wolverines, University of Michigan Wolverines. And Gene Daniels, 9-20, senior interception. J. McCarthy, 16-3, senior touchdowns. Rodriguez, 10 for 52. Aaron Jones, senior, 14 for 66. Jonathan, 4 for 62. Derek Warner, 3 for 41. And the Minnesota Vikings, it was not. You can say that the Minnesota Vikings, they played against Washington Commanders, who their defense has been struggling. Maybe the offense isn't the best, but Gene Daniels has been in and out of the lineup this season, and he was able to go this week, and they were willing to give him a go. But the only problem with this game was that in this game, he had a hurt. He had a shoulder injury, and in the third quarter, he re-aggravated that injury, and it seemed like he was okay to go. He wanted to go out, but they held him out for precaution reasons. They want him. He could go out and still play, but it's probably best for if he rests. So they precautioned it, and they brought Marcus Mariota. And it was in the middle of the third quarter. And then you had Minnesota. And they had a 12-minute drive on offense where Minnesota didn't give it, where Washington Commanders did their defense. They did not give it to them. They had to go 90 yards in the end of the first quarter after going forward on fourth down. Going forward on fourth down. And again, so a couple minutes left in the second quarter. Or the first quarter, excuse me, a couple minutes left the first quarter. They went 90 yards, 17 plays. So they really didn't give it to him. They had to earn that touchdown, and they did. So, and that was the big turning point of this game. When they got that big long drive, and they just didn't. And against a team that it doesn't matter who you're playing, they didn't give it to him. And that and they had to really earn it, and they did. So, and it was 9 of 20 interception and a sack for Genius 70 yards before he on the middle of the third quarter. Marcus Mariota 2 of 4 for 3 yards interception sack. And then Chris Kemart 7 for 32. Genius 4 for 16. Marcus Mariota 7 for 2%. Because Sam Senior 427. Jerry Larry said 3 for 1. Brown 4 for 19. Zach Ertz 1 for 11. Snow 1 for 8. 2 for McNichols. Then for the Vikings. You can say all you want. You can say that. Oh yeah, Minnesota didn't play the best defense team. No, they didn't. Maybe they didn't, but you know what? It's still an NFL caliber team. still, you played against really, you played, uh, you did what you could, you played who you played, you won against who you play, you win against who you play, you know, you, you know, it wasn't like it was a slouch, like on offense, like on when they had the offense, the defense really did not give it to them. They give it to them like a lot, the defense helped out the offense, with two interceptions, a fumble. So again, shorter fields, so the numbers aren't gonna look that as good for pass yards, but you'll take it all day long. And 4 sacks, yeah, you got 4 sacks. It took sacks instead of like actually just like because of pressure and stuff, but also and not in, but also not like force it. In interceptions. That's what you want. Jordan Reese, if you have to take a sack, or take a sack because of pressure, be able to get the ball away or throw it, for because of coverage. Jordan Reese 11:52, Jimmy McCarthy 16:18, or even just throw it away. So you just got 3:15, and then Genie the 4:33, Jordan S 4:62, Josh Over 2 for 24, 2 touchdowns. Touchdowns on both those receptions. T. Jackson, 2 catches for 12 yards, touchdown. Jefferson, 2 catches for 11 yards. Teflon, 1 for 10. Sims, 1 for 9. Xavier Scott, 1 for 5. Aaron Jones had a target, but no, he didn't catch it. And it's only Minnesota Vikings on the scoring for this game. First score, J.J. McCarthy, 18-yard pass. Deep left to Josh Oliver for 7. First touchdown, and Will record X was good 7-0. And Jeremy Mason shot 10 yards for a touchdown. And Will record X was good. Will record also kicked for Phil, and then got the extra point on a Josh Oliver 6-yard touchdown by short rate. Then J. McCarthy short pass to T. Johnson, which is no record X was good. So Minnesota with a great bounce back win, 31-0. Now there's a couple teams, that that they're playing that can still make the playoffs. Like they can play spoiler against Dallas Cowboys. They could knock them out of any hope for playoffs with the win. On Sunday football, they could not. And they played. Then they play New York Giants. Then they play Detroit Lions 7-10 in Minnesota. In Minneapolis. So they could play spoiler the Detroit Lions. They could play, maybe Green Bay Packers. Maybe they play spoiler Green Bay Packers for the division, Maybe Green Bay Packers, instead of getting the division, in the division they have to go play the wild. They don't get the automatic qualifier by winning the division. They get in as a wild card. Team. So you could have some spoilers in the playoff race and feel really good about yourself if you won 5 straight. Just playing spoiler. It seemed like after today, you don't know how they're 5. I mean, yeah, you do, but you had the Chicago Bears. They almost beat. They could have almost gave it away to Minnesota like this the first time. You had some games that were close. You don't know how this team was. Was this record? You don't understand. You don't know it because they also had some games. The Carson Wentz and with the other quarterbacks. Or with against Eagles was so you don't know how like they've had some games like the Pittsburgh Steelers in some games you don't know or even them or even just later in the year with McCarthy it was close games and you don't know how they did you don't know how how they're 5. I mean you do, but it's like you like after those games like basically they're a completely different football team like today compared to then. So that's what you want to see, JJ McCarthy finally just it clicked, and did what he's comfortable with, not like just trying to maybe a play or two, maybe just do a little bit more plays slowly every week, maybe. No, maybe he can get comfortable with another player or two more in this, or something like that. If he can, if he feels like it, So they do so. Not bad. And they're first, and they're the first team in 33 years to win a game, to hold a team to a shutout after getting a shutout themselves the game before, back-to-back games. The first game was a shutout. Was you guys shut out, and then you give a shout to the other team. And the Vikings did that for first team in 33 years. The Denver Broncos were the last team to do it in the year 1982. So we have the Buffalo Bills. They defeated the Cincinnati Bengals 39-34. Was a marquee match in the early window. This was going to be a 4:25 Eastern window game on Fox in America's Game of the Week. And then the Chicago Bears at Green Bay Packers game is going to be the early window game. They switched them because Joe Burrow's come back, but it was injury. The Bengals will not so great record, so they wanted more of a game competitive in playoffs. So they're doing. So then they end up switching, but the Bengals are still in playoff contention. Technically, they could be 7-10, or 8-10. They could be 8-10, or 8-9. Excuse me, 8-9. I don't want to say 8-10, 8-9. It could be 8-9, 7-10. But I was most likely they have to be 8-9. And hope that Pittsburgh falls to 7-10, and the Baltimore the best falls to 7-10. So after 8-9, so we'll see how that goes, but it's not looking too hot for them. But you know that kind of with Joe Burrow's injury, so I don't, but I can see that no problem. I'm not really surprised. Then you have, but Joe Burrow, 25-36, 24 touchdowns, reception. It was a good game. I saw the bonus coverage of this game. Because I watched Washington Minnesota Vikings game. It ended between like 2:30, 2:40 local time, Central time. It ended like half hour, 30 minutes, like early. Like, and even if it was 3 hours, it ended, or some games go a little bit like longer, like 3:10, like 10 after the hour, or 15 after or something like that. This one was definitely one of them. This one was good. It was, so he had 25-36 turnover rates, 4 touchdowns, 2 receptions. Josh Allen, 22-20, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. Esprit, 6 crazy yards. James Cook, 18 crazy yards. Teagan, 6 catches, 8 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not 6 catches, 8 yards. Joe Burrow had 4 tag a sack. Chase Brown, 12 for 23. And you add Ja'Marr Chase, 1 for 8. Mike Gesicki, 8 for 86. Ja'Marr Chase, 5 for 44. So he is 2 for 70. No Fant, 1 for 15. Chase Brown, 4 for 12. Hudson, 1 for 11. Breen, 1 for 7. And you had 3 sacks for Josh Allen. And then Josh Allen's 9 for 7 rushing. Touchdown. Johnson, 2 for 25. Dylan Kincaid, 4 for 4. James Cook, 2 for 11. Is 2 for 10. Shearer, 1 for 16. Coleman, Shakir, 2 for 16. Johnson, 2 for 4. Williams, 1 for 3. And Chris Brown, Rush, 10 for 6 yards. Touchdown. For 6 points, Chris Brown. Paris, 26 field goal to make it 7-3. And then Joe Burrow passed to Teagan's returns. And they have it for 6 points, good 14-3. Rashawn catch by Shakir. Another touchdown and a 2-point conversion the next 14. That was 21-11. Joe Burrow catch fresh right round. and then pushed out of bounds by Skylar Thompson to win. But the runner broke the plane, and the touch and the catch by Chris Crumford seniors. The McPherson was good, and just Sean Shapesri to kicking for yards. Pierce was good. Joe Burrow to make a second for 2 yards. Touchdown. Deshaun scrambled off tackle for yards, and then his pass was intercepted at the Buffalo's 37-yard. Joe Burrow's pass was the Buffalo's 37-yard. So by Steven for Buffalo 37. So back-to-back pass plays for Joe Burrow were interceptions. Back, back-to-back passes. And then just show. And it was the last, and two offense plays are also as well for Cincinnati. And Josh and true pass 3 by Jazz for thirds. And Matt Burris was good. And T against keeper pass for 2 thirds. And touchdown 1 for 2, but did not get. And that was it. So the game. And then T against 2 touchdowns, make a second touchdown. Just brought the pistol touchdown. And they also had they used to have a thing where you could like chat on Google, but not anymore, And they lost the film. And then the New Orleans Saints stun the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-20. What a game, stunner. And Taylor Show 13-20, Hereford's interception. Going for 14-30, Hunter Richards a interception. So really forced Baker Mayfield into some really tough, plays. Neal 19 carries 6 yards, Bucky 15 carries 50 yards. Bell 3 catches for yards. Chris Godwin 5 catches 50 yards. And then Taylor Show 745. Esseline 2 for 11. Hull 4 for 1. And then you had Johnson 4 for 30. Chris 3 for 30. Female Rowe 1 for 16. Neal 1 for 14. Hull 1 for 6. You had Buccaneers today. You had Rashad White for 53. Baker Foots for 42. To Grissom for 29. Okay, ring 2 for 26 touchdown. And Stuckert 7 for 9 touchdown. Chris 2 for 18. 2 for 15 for Shepard 1 for 5. Rashad White 1 for 2. Also Dini out 1 touchdown. Show 2 touchdowns. And then you had then in the first quarter, Dini shot 1 for 3 yards. Chris C. Smith extra was good. Then Baker Mayfield pressure left to complete. Jimmy Bucky to really the extra was good. So it was 7-7. Then there was a field goal for McLaughlin to show 3 for the then with the extra point 14-10. The Stucker rushed well in the extra point 14-17. Smith 3 field goal 17-0. Terry showed scramble left in 3 yards and the extra was good. McLaughlin 36-yard field goal. And that's the game. The New Orleans Saints go to 3-10. They stun the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-20. Tampa Bay Buccaneers could have had a bunch of play with it. And NFC South Taylor would have been there. They would have had lead for a game. They could have possibly got 2 games before they played Carolina. But now, this makes things interesting. Only a game back. Only tied right now. No, it might only be a game back or they might be a game back, or they might be tied. Or the best they're a game ahead, but it doesn't matter because if Carolina gets the ties, they'll head at tiebreaker. If they lose, Carolina loses their runs next week. So, and they beat Tampa Bay beats Atlanta. So, and then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They beat the Baltimore Ravens 27-22. A nice little bounce back by for Aaron Rodgers. 23-34, 200 yards to touchdown. Lamar Jackson 18-35, 218 yards to touchdown reception. Cam Kale 4 carries 50 yards of touchdown. So no rushing for the Steelers. Derrick Henry 25 for carries for 9 yards. He make have some catches 104 yards. Zay Flowers 8 catches 124 yards. Then Jim Warren for 13. Johnson 1 for 2 for. He 1 for 2. Rodgers 2 for 0 touchdown. So 1 yard rushing touchdown and then 1 yard loss. And then we had Jalen Warren for 15. Gus the third one for 31. Kevin Gable 6 for 27. Scored 1 for 13. Washington 2 for 12. Pat for 2 for 9. And Thielen's first game with the Steelers. He wanted to go to a playoff contender type team. But there's going to be not a lot of teams taking him. He wanted more of an increased role or a playoff type team. And the Steelers took him as like a backup option. Lamar Jackson took 2 sacks. Mitchell 6 for 66. Lamar Jackson 6 for 43. Then Isaiah Likely 4 for 29. Rashad Bateman 2 for 23. Kohler 2 for 19. 2 for Mark Andrews 1 for 9. And Derrick Henry 1 for 8. Then in the first quarter, Luke 36 field goal attempt. And then Rodgers yard touchdown. Chris Boswell extra point. And a 23-yard field goal for Chris Boswell. And Kenneth Gable 6-yard rush touchdown left rush just then. Kenneth Gable extra point. Lamar Jackson 6-yard touchdown rush. Right again. And defensive one in Pittsburgh. Didn't matter. It was declined. And they missed extra point. And then it was 29 with Kenneth Gable. Chris Boswell 26-yard field goal. And Lamar Jackson catch pass to Isaiah Likely for its touchdown. And the extra was good. 2016 and Isaiah Rodgers short pass complete to Jalen Warren for 3 yards. And then 28 of 36 field goal by Luke. That makes it 27-22. And that's the game. So now the Pittsburgh Steelers are your AFC North leaders. They are a game ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, winning the Monday Night Football for the Steelers, though against the Miami Dolphins. So big game for them. And then the Miami Dolphins. This is the last early window game. And then we'll go into 3. Our next part will be the 3 late window games: the Sunday Night Football and the Monday Night Football. And then the Miami Dolphins beat the New York Jets 34-10. A big game for the Dolphins. They still have some hopes for playoffs, but it's looking thin. Tua Tagovailoa 13 for 26 touchdown. And then Cook is not even playing. Brady Cook. And he was a practice squad quarterback. Coming off college, he's practice squad quarterback, and they signed him to this roster because they needed a quarterback. This time, Tyrod Taylor was the backup. For the Jets after Justin Fields, he got hurt. Then Tyrod Taylor, and him be he came in. They needed to sign Brady Cook. They sent him to the active roster. They put him on the active roster. Right, and then so right 24 carries for yards for the Dolphins. Then receiver Gino 5 for 50 for Jets. Resaw 4 for 14 for 3. And Taylor 55 for 31. And then you had Brady Cook with 2 receptions. Taylor 1 for 4, 6 yards reception before he came out. And King 7 for 82. One each. And Jamal 1 for 2. And over in third 5 for 17. Record 1 for 4, 2 to Willa. Yard and Zach Wilson. He may have came in at kneel on the ball. And then Woodridge for 3 for 4. Waller and 1 for 13. Washington 3 for 10. And for Jets, Mechie the third. Givenchy third 4 for 4. Williams 2 for 24. 1 for 2 for Mitchell. 22 record. back 1 for 19, 1 for 17. And the first score. And the first score, 2 to go past Jane for thirds. And 18 rush of tackle, 14 yards to touchdown. And then right rush left for 2 yards to touchdown. The person looks run score all 3 times. And they're early. 21-0, just a big. And then in the second quarter, and then the first quarter, 50-yard punt. Jay Bailey, and then Williams, 22 or 70-yard touchdown. Nick Folk, extra score. Preston at first 3 for goal. And then the fourth quarter, Nick Folk, 3 for goal. Warren rushed the second thirds in a pass. 53 for goal, so Pearson made an extra point and made 2 field goals to make a 34-10 victory. So we'll talk about the final 3, 4, or 5 games a week. 14. So a nice win for the Dolphins. Keep themselves in top contention. They need that to stay in. They don't have a ton of possibility. Maybe 10-7. I would say. But they still have a shot. Then you have the Broncos, the Raiders game. You have the Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders game. Then you have the Chicago Bears at Green Bay Packers, and the Los Angeles Arizona Cardinals, and the three late window games. And then you have the Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs, NBC Sunday Night Football. And then you have ABC and ESPN Monday Night Football with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Chargers.